Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 17. We're going video this time. How are you doing, Phil?
Really well, mate. I'm looking forward to this one. I could probably say that every time we interview someone, which says a lot about the people we interview, but this one's going to be good. But yeah, I'm really well. Oh, he's entered the room.
Oh, excellent.
Should we finish this intro first or let him in?
Yeah, we'll do our intro. So, yeah, we're going to talk to Delroy McQueen today. If you don't know who Del is, he was a competitive weightlifter back in the day. Had a record for a while. We'll talk about all of that. He's now moved into more deadlifting, like a powerlifting type scenario. So he does a lot more of that. And he's, I'm going to find out today if he still is a PT, but he was a very good PT for a long time. So we're going to find out a bit about him, about his diet, about how he trains, how he's adapted his training towards being now 45 plus. I think he's 46.
Yeah,
so, all good.
It's going to be a good episode because he's done so much, and he won in Manchester. Did I read that right?
We'll talk about that. He did the Commonwealth Games. He triple medalist, gold medalist. So yeah, I mean, hopefully he's going to have a lot to talk about. But let's bring him in. We'll cut off and we'll get him in. Hello, we're joined here by Delroy McQueen. Hi, Del.
Hey, how you doing?
Excellent. So there's the three of us here. We're just going to be firing some questions back and forward. First of all, though, I'd like just to find out a little, if you give us a little bit of a lowdown on how you started and kind of a bit about yourself would be really good for the listeners to get that first in. So if you fire away, Del, let us know.
Yeah, so my lifting career started, it must be like about 31 years ago. I was like 15. And one of the PE sessions at school, a weightlifting coach come along and just started teaching us basic weight training. And then slowly over sort of a period of time, he started introducing us to the Olympic lifting movements. Then I went along to his gym and started training. It just took off from there. A group of about 15 of us started to begin with, but over time the group whittled down and there was just me sort of left training in the end. But then in that group, there's guys that was probably to begin with were sort of far more talented and took to the Olympic list faster than I did. But I just stuck it out and over time developed and got better.
So it's kind of like the wheel in Conan the Barbarian. Loads of them started out. It's just left with you pushing it on your own.
Yeah, basically that's how. If you look at a lot of the sort of Eastern European countries that sort of get people into weightlifting, it was just by luck, to be honest.
Wow, it's amazing when you think about that, isn't it? How many people out there have got the ability to do that but have never tried it?
There's probably across the world, there's probably thousands and thousands of people that have the ability to be an Olympic champion or very successful in a lot of sports, but they would never get the opportunity, which is really sad, to be fair.
It is. And also, how many of them have not only just have got the ability, but they've got no interest or inclination to do it. That's the other thing, isn't it? Me and Phil have talked about this before, how you could walk past the best sprinter in the world, but he's never done a race in his life.
You only got to look in sort of the UK, for example. Like, how many kids out there have the potential to be a Wimbledon tennis champion?
Yeah.
But they're not in a fortunate enough position to sort of have access to facilities to do it. And then this country didn't have a champion for over 100 years before what's his name come along? I can't even think of his name off the top of my head now. Surname's Andy Murray.
Murray, yeah.
You were lucky.
There's nobody that could probably done it.
So you were lucky, Dale, to get that in school because you don't get that a lot. And I started off lifting because our school had a gym as well. And when we were 14, 15, we were allowed to lift weights. And I think that was how that started for me. But you don't get that in a lot of schools. Did you have that late at yours?
I didn't. I was just going to say you're very lucky. I got no Olympic lifting, not a chance. I mean, all we had was our gym teacher offered to open the gym up to us at lunch times, and that's how I started weight training at 14. We started doing like bench presses on an old school bench, not like a padded bench, a wooden bench.
Oh, we learned how to bench press on one of those.
Yeah, and
we could have two groups, one at each end to the bench because they're so long.
That's it. And no spotter. You had to help each other with the bar and. Yeah. I mean, that was all we had, literally all we had. There's not a chance of us doing any like Olympic lifting, not a chance. But I imagine that if you've got a school that can cope with that kind of level of coaching early on, then, that's going to be a massive advantage, isn't it? We didn't have anybody who could deal with that.
Yeah, the thing is, when I done it, it was just a one-off. So it wasn't a regular thing. The coach contacted the school just to come in for like a one-off session, and it just went off from there. So I was just really lucky, I guess. It's just good timing.
Imagine if you'd been off that day, mate.
Yeah, I'd probably be in prison or somewhere by now.
What was it? So that's a great start to the conversation. the other thing I wanted to find out a little bit about was, when you went from, because just to let the listeners know, when my first introduction to you, actually, we talked about this, was at Bisham Abbey, and you came in to do a demonstration of the Olympic lifting when I did my course, and I was 22. And I don't know what age that would have made you, a little bit younger. You'd have been in about 18 or something then.
Yeah, so I'm 46 now, so yeah, I'd probably be about that sort. Yeah, about 18.
And you were the one who did the demonstration to us, and we were all like in awe because you were throwing like ridiculous weights overhead, and we were like just learning how to do a squat basically. But yeah, so that was the first intro. So going on from there, when you really got into, you got the bug for it. What was your first competition from then? Did you progress quite quickly from that point on?
To be honest, it took a while to develop. So my first competition was like the London London Under-18s Championships, my first one. So I went into the competition, and I've trained for about 6 weeks, and I actually thought I was pretty good at that stage. And then I walked into the competition and basically got my ass handed to me. I think I finished about 5th or 6th place. So, and then I was looking at what these people done. All I was doing, I was just inspiring to sort of say, right, I finished like 6th place. I wanted to beat the person who was in 5th place, was my first target. So I just sort of trained hard, went and done that, and then slowly worked my way up through the sort of system, really, and sort of beat one person at a time till I sort of eventually won the London Under-18 Championships.
Oh, did you? That must have been good, going back and winning that.
Yeah, it's just one of those. You set little sort of goals along, like as you go along the way, and my aspirations weren't big. I didn't think I'd be British champion or anything like that. It was just like I got good at regional level, then I got invited to a national squad, and then it just all took off from there.
Did you realise when you were quite young that you were pretty strong? I mean, were you physically strong as a kid? I mean,
yeah, I was probably physically strong, but it was never sort of like tested. So if I was in a football match and someone run into me, they'd normally end up on the floor. So it's just sort of basic things like that. And then
you didn't do rugby. You didn't do any rugby, no? You'd have been awesome on rugby.
No, I was in a London school, so the PE teacher wasn't really too much into rugby. It was all football at the time.
Yeah.
So we sort of just got forced along that route.
Excellent.
What's your height and weight, out of interest?
At the moment?
Yeah, yeah.
About 5'9", and I weighed in at 119 kilos at the weekend. 119.
Wow. What's your weight, Lee?
I'm 95
yeah, so heavy
at the moment. Yeah, I fluctuate between 90 and 95 depending on what I'm training at the time. How about you? I've got lots of questions about your nutrition, Del, actually. But do you hold that weight quite well? Do you hold a weight fairly steady?
Yeah, I hold the weight quite well, and I don't have to like eat like loads and loads of calories like a lot of other people to maintain that weight. My calorie intake is generally around sort of 4,000 a day, and I have probably about 250 grams of protein.
Right.
And the rest I just sort of make up with other things, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. So you just work your macros. That was going to be one of my questions, actually. That's cool. So you work your fats and your carbs around your protein, basically, as depending on how you are on the day.
Yeah, I always make sure I get 250 grams of protein, and always make sure I get around that 4,000 calorie mark in terms of calories, and then the rest is pretty much made up. Every day might be a little bit different. I just try and keep a big variety of food so I don't get bored.
Yeah.
Just keep it really simple.
Yeah. Going back to your lifting, I want to ask, because so few people have actually experienced this. What was it like stood on that podium with the gold medal around your neck? It must have been just a phenomenal feeling, because obviously we've just had the Olympics, and this, you see all the emotion tied up with it.
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling. What made it more special for me is probably, so that was 2002. At the beginning of 2000, I was told there's a possibility I might never be able to lift again because I dislocated my elbow in training and tore my medial ligament and had to have surgery on it. So that made the moment a lot more special for me, because my goal was to basically win a medal of some sort at the Commonwealth Games. It weren't necessarily gold. And in that particular competition, no matter what I'd done, everything just went right.
Yeah, well, very, very right. I mean, you came away with 3, didn't you? Because just to let people know, in case they don't know the history of this, you won the snatch, the clean and jerk, and the combined, didn't you?
Combined overall total. Like the snatch was my worst lift at the time, and people thought I'm never going to win the snatch in a million years.
Yeah.
And I was one of those lifts in the build up to the Commonwealth Games. I trained really hard and sort of pushed the boundaries. And my opening attempt actually equaled my PB in training.
Nice.
And was like probably like 5 or 7.5 kilos above my competition PB as well.
So what made you go in? What made you be so ballsy and go in at such a high first lift?
To be honest, I didn't make the choices, to be honest. I just done the training and just done what my coach told me to do.
Really?
And then he just picked all the opening attempts. So I just went and lifted. And with my coach, I knew that whatever weight he picked, he knew I was going to lift.
I was going to say, that's a lot of trust.
50-50 attempts. So I was quite confident just purely based on that.
That's a phenomenal, like Phil just said, that's a phenomenal amount of trust in your coach, isn't it? Because, that could have gone, obviously it didn't, but it could have gone horribly wrong if he'd have got that wrong.
Oh, definitely. Like the guy that worked with me for years, and he knew me and like sort of my mentality and that sort of thing, and knew like I could always live very, very well on the big occasions. So he knew that sort of pressure weren't going to get to me, or I wasn't going to get nervous or anything like that. So he just picked the numbers purely based on that, and that was basically designed to sort of throw the reigning champion off, because he thought he would have a massive lead going into the clean and jerk. And then he was basically going to do as much as he could and just sort of force me above what my potential was. But that didn't happen on the day.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's like a movie, isn't it? Just, you turn up and you lift your PB. Like, that's a first attempt.
Yeah, and the thing is, I knew I was capable of sort of doing a lot more. So in the back of my mind, knowing I had that sort of capability there, I just went along with it.
Massive confidence boost going in like that, knowing you've got that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And once the sort of snatch was over, then unless I'd done something seriously wrong or got injured, I knew I was going to win the overall.
Yeah, excellent. So how long did your record last? Because you've got a record in the combined lift, didn't you? So the two combined weights gave you a record.
I think they changed the bodyweight classes recently, and up to that point, no one broke the Commonwealth Games records up till now. So I guess they're staying forever now, because that weight class don't exist anymore.
That's awesome.
So up until recently, it was still an active record.
Yeah, it's still an active record, and even the weight class similar, because there's only 1 or 2 kilos difference in terms of the weight class. No one's lifted those sort of weights since. And even in the Commonwealth Games with the same weight class, a few people have tried but never sort of quite got there, especially on the clean and jerk.
Wow, that's a phenomenal achievement, isn't it?
Amazing.
To still be active now, like
sometimes with those achievements, once they're done, they're left in the past, and I'd sort of move quickly on to sort of the next thing.
Yeah,
so it's happened, and sort of proud of what I've done, but I'm sort of always looking forward on what I'm going to do next.
And yeah, absolutely.
Pretty much the same as it was then.
Just while we're talking about clean and jerks, what are your thoughts on the New Zealand lifter, the trans athlete? Because we've talked about it a couple of times on the podcast. What are your thoughts on like trans men going in to compete as a woman? You obviously shine some light on it coming from the competitive side.
It's completely unfair. You got to bear in mind as well, before they actually made that transition, they were fully active as a male. They got the structure of a man, which is, I'm not being sexist, it's going to support a lot more weight.
Absolutely.
They've had the hormones of a man pretty much most of their lives, so they're going to produce the strength for that as well. And so if they lost 5% of that strength or 10% of that strength, it's still going to be a lot more than the average woman.
Yeah.
To compete, and I think it's wrong. They should have their own class or category. I know you can't categorize people anymore, or this sort of gender neutral stuff, and that sort of thing's gone way too far. But I think they should have their own separate category, so they can compete against people like themselves, or if they want to compete, they compete in the men's category. Even if they've got a female name or whatever it may be, they compete against the men.
Totally agree. It just makes me laugh that we've talked about this, and I'm not going to go into it too long, we've already talked about quite a bit, but you can see it was a decision made by people who knew nothing about lifting. That's what annoyed me.
Let's put it into perspective, right? It happened in lifting and that sort of thing. What if it was boxing?
Well, it's happened in MMA, hasn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
In Olympic boxing, I don't believe there's any transgenders there. Are they going to let a man or who's transitioned go and fight a female in the boxing ring?
Well, officially, yes. Officially, yeah, they could. That's the crazy thing.
It's just a joke.
It can't happen.
No.
They would kill each. Well, he would kill her.
Potentially, yes.
Kill her. Yeah. Anyway, we'll leave that because it's something we've talked about quite a bit. But I just wanted to get your perspective from a lifter and a competitor as well. So you've mentioned your calories. We talked about that. That's great. So you stay fairly steady on your calories. You maintain a fixed macro for your protein, and then you work your other calories around it. So that's cool. So a few people have asked about that. But in terms of like you becoming more of a mature athlete now, like you're 45 plus, how has that changed from when you were saying your late 20s, 30s? How is your volume changed, or how do you adapt now to being a bit older?
Well, a lot of the changes have come generally being a lot stronger. So being a lot stronger, you can't do the same amount of volume as you would do when you're sort of weaker in your 20s. But I think as you get older, you develop a much sort of heightened sense of what your body can do on a particular day. So if you're sort of walking to training and you've experienced a lot. So for example, in the past, if you've torn a muscle, all those little signs in the past that you've ignored and you think, I'm just going to do this training session anyway. Now I can see the warning sign coming. I'm like, I need to back off now, because I know if I don't, this is going to happen. So a lot of it is sort of developed from the experiences in the past and taking note of all those little things that you normally ignore, if that makes sense. And if I go into a training session now and I feel a little bit flat, I'm not going to force anything to happen. The chances are I'd start warming up in the gym. If it's not going to happen, I'll just leave, have a couple of days off training, and just do the session 2 days later.
Yeah, so you become more instinctive. So you're more instinctive with your training, more instinctive.
Oh, definitely. And I can read a lot of the signs, like my body gives me a lot better now than when you was back in your 20s, which you pretty basically ignore.
So your total volume has gone down, but the loads that you use have gone up. So that would be...
Yeah, but then if you look, when the loads that you use go up and you're a lot stronger, you can't handle as much volume anyway.
Yeah,
if that's not enough for your training, then you know that. The biggest mistake I find a lot of people do, they train the same way for like 10 years and they'll be a lot stronger, and they think, that helped me get to that sort of point there, but they don't take into account the sort of the impact the extra weight's going to have on your body.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the amount of wear and tear that you accumulate.
So the central nervous system needs a lot more recovery as well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. And you know as well, if you sort of like, now I wake up in the morning and I know when my CNS is fatigued. Years ago, you just get up and think, I just feel a little bit tired today, and then sort of try and work your way through it.
Yeah.
So just knowing those sort of signs there.
Yeah. So what about your training frequency? What about, do you do the same kind of, split training, or what do you do now just for your lifting?
Yeah. So my
you
training
focus on deadlifting, don't you now?
I don't train any more than sort of 4 days a week. What I consider proper training. So for example, on a Monday, I'll do my sort of deadlift session. On a Tuesday, I'll bench press. Wednesday, I generally have Wednesdays off. Thursday, I'll do squats, and then Friday, I'll do an upper body session, and then have the weekend off to recover. Nice. But in between that, sometimes I do like little mini workouts. So nothing too high intense, just like half an hour of either whatever sort of accessory work I might have missed earlier in the week due to time restraints. I'll fit that in, and just like real sort of low intensity, high volume work in between. So nothing sort of overly taxing.
Excellent. So do you do any supplementary grip work?
That's one of the things I've had to start doing, the supplementary grip work. So I do. I've trained grip probably like twice a week. So, and I'll just basically rotate a lot of different exercises over those sorts of 2 sessions.
Because I remember speaking to you a good few years ago now, and you were thinking about going into strongman, weren't you? Yeah,
I was going to go into strongman probably around about 2010.
Yeah.
But then I sort of changed careers and all that sort of thing. And the risk of injuries would have been quite detrimental to what I was moving into. Right. So I decided not to, based on that.
So what made you have you got another job now, or are you sponsored, or how does it work with you now?
I do a lot of online, basically online training, where I basically send programs out online, and do a few one-to-one coaching sessions. But that's just for people who want to get stronger. So I'm not a PT anymore. I don't have to train people that sort of basically want to get fit or lose weight and that sort of thing. Yeah. So I don't need to do that. So it's only people that's got a focused goal on being stronger, basically.
So they're already pretty focused when they come to you, because that's the McQueen method that you work. Yeah.
It's quite surprising though. You would think people will come to you a lot more focused, and sometimes they don't. It's just really strange perception of people.
Yeah, you would think that, especially because it's a fairly big investment. It's quite a serious, process to get involved in at this level, isn't it? So I mean, Do you start? Would you work with beginners as well, or do they always fairly mature athletes come to you?
I work with beginners, mature athletes, elite athletes, a big variety really. So pretty much all across the board.
Right. Okay. What about injuries? We've had one of the questions I've got from a listener was how you deal with injuries. Do you just stop your training and allow yourself recover? Do you manage to train around it, or what kind of treatment do you use? Is there anything that you've found works for you treatment wise?
What I tend to do with injuries is I know my body really, really well. So if I tore a muscle, I know that if I go back into the gym, not doing anything heavy or anything like that, and just sort of move the muscle and increase the blood flow to it, one, my sort of rate of injury, like healing, increases significantly, and two, I get a far less build up of scar tissue. Because I've been to see physios after sort of just using the approach I use, and they're amazed how little scar tissue's there when I've actually sort of come back off a muscle tear and that sort of thing. So I tend to sort of do that. And then when it comes working around injuries, I will just rest the area that's injured. So for example, if I had a shoulder problem, I wouldn't do any upper body work. I'll just rest that area and do the rehab work, and then focus on other movements I can do. So what I'll do is don't focus too much on what I can't do, just focus more on what I can do. And then that way, mentally, it's just a lot easier to cope with. Yeah,
absolutely. One of the things I've been asked about how you approach things is, so I'll just fill people in on this. I remember one thing you said to me years ago, and it really stuck in my head, and that's when you approach a bar for a lift, there should be no doubt in your mind that you're going to lift that bar. You know, because if you approach it with any kind of negativity or a thought that, oh, this is too heavy for me, then it's just not going to move. Because psychologically, it's such an important thing to get right, isn't it, when you're lifting?
Oh, without a doubt. And people need to remember is if I lift a heavy lift, like if it's a rep max or 1 rep max, my body is prepared to do that lift. I don't just randomly walk in the gym and think, oh, I'm going to do a 3 rep max today just to see what I can do or give it a go.
Yeah.
And if the time comes, my body is ready to perform that movement to the level I expect. So if my body's prepared right, I'll always lift the weight. And if the weight selected correctly, I'll always lift the weight.
Yeah.
If I overshoot or overplay my abilities or let ego get in the way, that's when it starts to go wrong, and then you end up sort of not lifting the weight you should.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Do you still have a coach at that level? I mean, or do you coach yourself now? How does that? When you're competing now?
I coach myself, but then sometimes if I'm sort of unsure about something like, or I think I need someone to look at this for me rather than me just saying I'm just going to do this and it'll be fine. There's loads of people I can contact. So, for example, I can pick the phone up. I can phone up Andy Bolton and get him to have a look, or I can contact Ed Cohen and say, right, can you have a look at this for me? So there's the range of people I can contact to sort of look at things if I need it. It's huge.
Yeah,
that's great to have those kind of people and speed dial, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say who through powerlifting have been your influences. Like, I did a bit of powerlifting, did one meet, and I used to love, I followed a lot of West Side barbell stuff. Probably was way too advanced for me at the time, and I followed Jim Wendler's 531. Is there any programs you've done in the past or any that you recommend apart from your own, obviously?
To be honest, I recommend my program's not just like one specific program that one t-shirt fits all.
Yeah.
So when I can program like a conjugate training style system. I can program a high frequency training system. So I don't really use a one t-shirt fits all approach. So I'll say, right, this person wants to work towards this. They might be better suited to using the conjugate, or that person might be better suited to using RPE. So I don't give like the sort of one fixed program or just sort of water down what I do myself and then give it to the next person. So I've normally sort of tailored to them. But in terms of programs I've followed conjugate. I've followed a lot of the juggernaut stuff. I've tried the Wender system, which I think is good for a strongman, but not so good for powerlifting. And Boris Shako, I've done Boris Shako's training systems and a lot of other things over the years.
Yeah, of course.
And they've all worked fantastic, to be honest, and been really good programs.
How often do you test a 1 rep max? Because I think that's a common thing you see people doing too often is going to the gym weekly and trying to do 1 rep max to get stronger. I feel like it seems to be like overkill.
Yeah, I only do it like if I plan, say, right, this is my biggest competition of the year, I'm really focused on that, or I've got a particular goal in mind, that's the only time I do a 1 rep max. Otherwise you won't see me do it.
Yeah.
What people really need to remember in terms of one rep maxes, or say a 10 RPE lift, your body has only got so many of those efforts inside it. Once they're done, they're done. So if you're one of these people that randomly goes in the gym and every 2 weeks does a 1 rep max, how long do you think your career's going to last? Not very long.
Yeah.
But then if you spent sort of 6, 8 months or even a year sometimes building up to a peak, you hit the weight at the top of your peak and then sort of drop things back down and start building up again, you're going to last a lot longer as well. And if you do things the right way, when you hit your 1 rep max, it won't be an all-out 10 RPE effort. You're probably looking like a 9.5 where you might have a little bit more there. So you're not going to completely sort of burn yourself out over the course of time.
And over the months and years that, you save yourself and you progress better. It makes sense.
A lot better. So you're better off like improving small amounts consistently over years rather than looking like real short, fast term fix and like massive jumps in a short period of time.
Yeah. Going back to how you prepare and just generally train, is there any supplements that you found? Obviously, that's always something people want to know. The amount of times I'm sure you've had the same with people who'll stop and ask you what protein you use, and you feel like just saying that is such a small part of this. Don't even talk about it. But is there a supplement that you find works really well for you that you'd recommend? Or is anything out there?
I wouldn't say no particular supplement as such, but what I recommend is people make sure they're getting the right sort of vitamins, minerals in, right micronutrients, and also look at your diet. If your diet's really, really poor, and then you start taking creatine or a protein powder and pull it on top of a poor diet, do you really think it's going to do much? All it's going to do is basically paper over the cracks of what you're not doing. And I think that's what the supplement industry sort of almost sells to people that sort of paper over the cracks of doing everything else poorly. So before you start looking at supplements, I always recommend people sleep properly is number one. Make sure your diet's good and you're getting a lot of the right micronutrients, number two. And then in addition to that, if you're getting both of those things right, then you can bring some other supplements on top. But just bear in mind, those supplements are not going to make the sort of 10, 15 or 20% difference that everyone else thinks. You might get 1 or 2% out of that. But then if you get 1 or 2%, if you add like 1 or 2% on top of a 300 or 400 kilo deadlift, is quite a significant amount of weight. So when you look at it like that, it's all accumulative.
Definitely. That's something we've talked quite a bit on here, actually. In fact, I compare it to, the triangle, the fire triangle about, fuel, oxygen and heat and all that. Well, we've often said it's the same kind of thing. You've got the stimulus, the training, you've got the nutrition, and then you've got the recovery. If one of those is missing, then basically the wheels are going to fall off the wagon at some point.
Oh yeah, it's going to catch up with you eventually. I think the problem now is people are looking for the fast fix. So rather than training for like a year to get that 5 kilo improvement, they look at all the other things so they can get that 5 kilo improvement without putting the effort in and be able to do it in 3 or 4 months. But in reality, that's not going to happen. And then sometimes if it happens by mistake, you start taking a supplement and all of a sudden you get that 5 kilo improvement. Everyone believes that 5 kilo improvement comes from taking that supplement. Well, in actual fact, you probably got your sleeping and eating right, and you just trained well at that particular point in time.
You just peaked right.
That's literally it. But
Speaking
everyone's
of
looking
peaking,
for that sort of fast fix magic formula.
Absolutely.
The magic formula is listen to people who have been there before you and the mistakes they've made, and if you can avoid making those mistakes, you're going to get to where you want to be a lot faster.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, going back into your training, how do you manage to fit your? Because I know you've got a young lad, haven't you? You've got a young family.
Yeah, he's 9. He just went back to school today.
Is he 9 now? Jeez.
Yeah.
So how do you fit around the family with your workouts? I mean, I suppose it's not as bad as if you've got a super high volume of training, but I mean, there's still issues, because that was one of the questions we had off a couple of people there. How you manage to fit your family life and your social life around your training? Do you suffer for it?
So I'm quite lucky, like with what I do. So for example, my day would be I'd drop my son off at school. I'd either go straight to the gym and train, or I'd maybe have a couple of one-to-one coaching sessions. Then I'll go home, answer my emails and messages. Then I'll go and train after that. So normally all my work's normally done before I pick him up from school.
Oh, excellent.
And then I'll have like literally probably 2 nights a week where I'll do a couple of coaching sessions, and I'll limit it to that. So what I tend to do is to sort of fit all my work in, sort of basically during the day, most of it.
Right.
Cool.
Is that all on Zoom now?
Do that.
Do you do much actual face-to-face stuff, or is it all over the phone or over Zoom?
I'm quite lucky. I can do face-to-face stuff, but only with people I really want to train. Not people I'm sort of forced to train to make a living.
Yeah.
All right, stop boasting. Yeah, this is great stuff, mate. I've only got a couple more questions actually, and then we'll just if you've got anything else, Phil, we can fire in. There was one that here we go. The particularly was the job. That was the job. There was somebody emailed me earlier about it. Oh, this was it. What psychological tricks do you use to ready yourself for a big lift? Do you use any for a start?
To be honest, I've tried all of that sort of stuff in the past. I don't really need to. For a big lift, I always treat it as not a big lift, it's just another lift. So literally, if you look at every rep I do in training, one, I try and be really, really consistent with how I perform every repetition in training. So every repetition I sort of mentally prepare for. So when I go to the big heavier lifts, it's no different to any other lift I've done in training. It's all the same process that I do probably hundreds of times every week. So everything becomes automatic when I step on the platform.
Yeah.
So I don't try and switch things up or change or do anything different just because the weight's heavy. I just treat every weight like it's heavy and try and approach it that way.
Yeah.
And it's not really a trick. I think it's just the easiest way to like mentally prepare yourself.
So it kind of your confidence comes from routine and just being prepared.
Yeah, be prepared. So if you've done everything required of you in your training program, and you pick the right weight you should be attempting, not some sort of ego lift like 15, 20 or 30 kilos above, then you've increased your chances of lifting it. So it's about selecting the right weight at the right time to perform the movement.
Yeah. I've just started, I helped a girl out who's just starting on the strongman route or strong person route. And she had her first competition recently. And I tried to help her out with that. What I did was I chose, to give her confidence, I chose a lift that I knew she could do as her first attempt, and then there was one that was on the borderline, and then there was a little bit of an out there one, which on the day she did. So, do you use visualization at all, or do you go in then? Do you visualize yourself lifting the weight? I guess some people really swear by that, or do you just, like you said, just go in there? You know you can lift it, you lift it, and it's just such a pattern that you don't even need to think about it.
I've got such a pattern. I know I'm going to lift the weight when the time comes. There's I don't really very, very rarely have lifts in training competition.
Yeah.
Always sort of mentally prepared, and not like you said, but you sort of picking the sort of numbers like you did for that girl, which is basically what you should do. Right. So, for example, the first attempt should always be something you can do any day of the week.
Yeah, that's exactly what
Brandon Lilly calls it your 365 lift. If someone woke me up in the middle of the night and said, right, go over to the gym and lift this weight, you have to get out of bed, pick yourself up and go and lift that weight.
Right, so that's a good way to put it.
Attempt. And then the second attempt, you're looking at probably around sort of, if you put it in the percentage terms, probably like 96 to 97% of what your sort of current max is. Not something you've done 10 years ago, what you can do now.
Yeah.
And then once you've done that, then you're looking at a small increase. So you might be looking at, if everything's going really, really well, you're looking at about 101, 102% of your current max. And if the previous lift didn't go fantastic, then you just equal your max. Yeah. So it's being sort of realistic about things as you go along the way.
Yeah, that sounds pretty much what I advise. So that's good to know that I'm not too far off the money on that. So, and just staying with that, actually, she wants to compete again. But I think I've just got to help her be realistic with where she's going to go, because the amount of improvements you can make between now and then is just got to be realistic, hasn't it? So it's just managing expectations now. I think it's a long term.
The hardest thing, like when I first started coaching people involved in strongman, the hardest thing is you get people contact you and they say, right, I want to compete in this competition. And you're like, okay, what are the events? So they send you a list of the events. And then my next question is, what are your current maxes on those events? Yeah. And it's amazing. So like it could, like, for example, you could have a 220 kilo deadlift for reps. Then they come back with like, oh, my max is 200 kilos. I'm like, okay, maybe you want to consider competing in a different strongman competition, one that's sort of more catered to your ability. Yeah. And bear in mind with strongman, the biggest problem is there's no sort of standardized events.
No.
So you could be anything across the board. So it's just little things like that which are a lot different. And it's just really bizarre how people can think they can increase their lifts, and they contact you and you say, when's the competition? They're like, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I might be a good coach, but I'm not.
Not a miracle worker.
Yeah.
That was the thing that shocked, I think, both of myself and my client, was the level of the lifting. Even we went in a novice competition, so this was nobody placed or went to the competition before, supposedly. But one of the girls deadlifted 225 kilos.
It's amazing, but
it's
then
phenomenal.
It comes down to if so. For example, I haven't done a strongman competition. Got probably about maybe 15 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So if I went to enter one now, I could easily go and enter a novice strongman competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Trophy
it doesn't make it really that fair. So it's just one of those ones of like, how do they standardize it?
Yeah, exactly. Because you could really, if you were that type of person, just cruise around all these novice competitions, stacking up your trophy cabinet and just never pushing yourself any further without there being some kind of level,
I think it'd be quite amazing how many people do that within strongman, where they should go like from the novices go up to the intermediates, and they don't.
Yeah, it's out of their comfort zone, literally.
But then if they had like a sort of ranking system or something like that, and you signed up a membership to a strongman federation, when you're performing like a novice competition, then you get promoted to intermediates. Then your membership says intermediate, so you can only enter intermediate competitions.
Absolutely.
That side of it's all like pretty much sorted, but that don't happen in strongman.
Yeah, you're right. It's still quite, especially in the UK. In America, I imagine it's maybe a little bit more organised, but in the UK, it's still a little bit slapdash, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be. I think in the UK, they just need the governing body, so someone who just stands up and sort of runs the sort of lower level. Like Giants Lie is very, very, very well organised, has a good ranking system and everything else. But it's all the sort of the lower level stuff under that in the UK, which is like sort of a little bit open sort of thing for interpretation.
Excellent. Well, I think I'm pretty out of questions there, mate. That's been amazing. But have you got anything else, Phil?
The only thing I was going to ask is what made you change from Olympic lifting to powerlifting? Was it just a change of challenge, or was it?
Good question. So that had been back, let me think, 2004. So I went to Olympic qualifiers, and basically before the qualifiers, they said whoever gets basically the highest weightlifting equivalent of a Wilks score or a coefficient score will go to the Olympic Games. So I trained really, really well, was very well prepared to do that. I think I actually met Lee before I went there actually as well. So I went to the competition, and when I landed in the Ukraine, they said, right, we'll change the system. Basically, whoever gets the highest place in their weight category in the European Championships will go to Olympic Games. And then so the day before I arrived, one of the 64 kilo lifters finished, I think it's like top 8. And there was a really sort of low standard class, and a number of lifters bombed, where I competed at 105 kilos, which is an absolutely stacked class. Yeah. And I knew at that point I weren't going to go to the Olympic Games. So the time I actually started warming up to compete, I couldn't be bothered to be there. Right, so I literally done one snatch, one clean and jerk, and said, all right, I'm finished. I'm done with the sport now, and then just walked away.
Did that annoy you so much that you kind of that was enough to make you switch? That was.
Yeah, at that sort of stage, when they sort of just changed the rules like that, I was just fed up with it. I thought, you know what, I don't need to be in this system now. If I'd have, for example, hung on and carried on lifting until 2012, I could have literally sat on my sofa for months on end, not doing any training, and went to like a qualifying event and walked into the British team with ease. And that's the difference in terms of that. So yeah, I could have went to the Olympic Games, but I think it was just timing and the sort of system back then just wasn't right at the time. So I was just shortly after that, I was just in the gym training, and there was a guy in the gym who was British powerlifting champion. And then one of the members said, what would happen if you compete against him in the competition? I was like, that's a reasonable enough question. Let's find out. So it was only equipped powerlifting back then and no raw lifting. Yeah. So I've done my research online in terms of what equipment you should use and all that sort of thing. So I got the equipment, trained up for a qualifier. Then I finished second in the qualifier. And then 8 weeks later, I become British champion.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
So yeah, so but you got to look at everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
If I didn't if I went to the Olympics, then maybe I wouldn't have started powerlifting, and then the chances are I wouldn't be lifting now.
Yeah.
I'd have had some sort of injury associated with Olympic lifting.
Yeah.
Pretty much prevent me from doing anything.
I was going to say, do you think you can have there's more longevity in powerlifting versus Olympic lifting?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think one of the problems with Olympic lifting, I don't think when you do it to a high level, people don't realise how much stress is on the body. And now what I'm understanding is where you got people like in their sort of 30s just starting out to get in Olympic lifting, which is good and everything else, but I think it's an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Unless you've got like a gymnastics background or something like that from the past, I think it's not going to be a good idea and it's not going to last very long.
This is where me and CrossFit fell out.
That was literally what I was about to say. That's where CrossFit kind of is a bit.
Yeah. We see. I don't know whether you know, Del, or you might remember, but I started a CrossFit in Maidenhead.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it ran. Well, it's still running now. I think they've renamed it, but I ran it for 4.5 years, and in that time, I refused to do snatch.
I agree with you. Very good reason.
I used to get loads of grief off people. In fact, I remember one CrossFit. They don't do snatch, and I felt like saying, you carry on, mate, let's see how your shoulders are in 5 years time, because you see just people butchering the movement for a start. And also it's awful to see someone do a high rep version of an exercise that's so skill demanding that you should not be doing 50 of them against the clock.
And also with you, for example, like you've done the right thing there, because if you was in your sort of CrossFit place at the time and someone would come, like basically done a snatch and drop the bar on their back, damage their spine, and they can never walk again, whose fault is that? It's not the person under the bar. It's your fault for not stopping them.
100%. You got to just what's it called? Duty of care.
Yeah. And I don't think they've realised that yet. And I think that can of worms hasn't been opened yet in CrossFit. Yeah,
I mean, they've had a couple of close calls. I think someone did actually drop the bar on their back, and I don't know whether they were actually paralysed, but they were very badly injured from that. I mean, talking about there how much it batters your joints. I mean, what always worried me was because people just don't have that mobility through the shoulders, the flexion, extension, or anything really to do that kind of load overhead. And it's just so easy to get it wrong.
Yeah, and also you got to bear in mind, even if you do have the sort of flexibility and everything else, it's the amount of wear and tear your body accumulates over the years. Yeah. So even if you do things perfectly, if you don't stop at the right point, you are going to end up with some sort of shoulder issue, unfortunately, regardless of what it says.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Listen, mate, we've taken up loads of your time there. We really appreciate that. That's been a really interesting chat.
Oh, thanks for inviting me on your podcast. I really appreciate it.
Honestly, it's been a joy, mate. Thanks very much. And if you forward on your details to me, all your social media stuff, I'll put it in the show notes, and we'll, and if you could do the same, just share it out. That'd be awesome. I saw you've already shared it on Instagram. Yeah, thanks very much again, mate. That was awesome.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Phil.
And you, mate. Nice. Thanks for coming on. Cheers.
Thank you.